Good to see everyone here today. And we have a special program as well, so I won't be teaching as long. Happy birthday to Carol and Rita. I remember one of my first meetings of when I got to see all of you. I think Carol was probably on the computer on Zoom, but I remember it was your birthday, and I thought it was nice to get to celebrate our two PIPs together, our past international presidents. So happy birthday. Thank you for spending it with us. And I believe that today I have listed that Karen will be singing Mishaberach as I put it on the screen for everyone. I will put it in present mode, I hope. Is it there?
No, not yet.
You don't see the present mode?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, good. So we'll be studying chapter 119, not in its full because it's 176 verses. So today is one of several days of studying that chapter, but first Karen will sing Mishaberach for us.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Yasha Kochech, you have a beautiful voice, and thank you. And we pray for healing for all those body and soul, and healing for patients as we all move towards the high holidays with lots of different transitions and changes this year. If anyone has children, you know that the idea of a hybrid learning situation, one day in school, one day not, it's a test on everyone's patience. So it's good to study some Torah, some Tanakh, Psalms together, and pray together as well. So we're here together. So as I said, we're going to study Psalm 119, which is an extremely long psalm. It's actually the longest psalm. 176 verses. It's actually brilliantly laid out, I think, where David wrote it as an acrostic, if we believe that David wrote it. So it goes through Aleph through Taf, the entire Hebrew alphabet, and for each letter, there's 8 verses. So you have 8 verses that start with Aleph, 8 verses that start with Bet, 8 with Gimel, etc. So why did he do this so orderly? And so it's a personal perfection in a way. So they say that this is why. Believe it or not, there's actually even a title for this psalm found in the book of the Talmud Bavli and Masachet, the Tractate of Brachot, on 4b, so the very beginning of the tractate. It refers to the psalm in the Aramaic as Timanya Apin, so which means the repetition of 8. And why 8? Whereas 7 symbolizes the power of this world created in 7 days, 8 symbolizes the reliefs from desire of the mundane world, which distracts a person from spiritual aspirations. So this 8th one, as 7 plus 8, is for our spiritual aspirations, which is a wonderful thing to think about as we're in the month of Elul. What are our spiritual aspirations going to be in this new year? And what were our spiritual aspirations in the year that we're concluding? And we'll be hearing the shofar to wake us up to that. And after we blow the shofar, we're going to have a discussion to say, how do we create these sacred spaces in our own home as we have these spiritual aspirations for 5781? So David painstakingly charts the progressive stages of his determined ascent towards spiritual perfection. So there's not only spiritual aspiration, but there's spiritual perfection. Now, I don't know how many of us are perfect. I don't think anyone is here, But what can we do in order to aspire to that? We can try to walk in God's way. And that is what David is saying. He has praises that those who walk in God's ways and follow and study the Torah, then they have these spiritual aspirations towards some sort of perfect world. And the theme says, what should you do in life? Enjoy it. It's not a dress rehearsal. Enjoy life. Taste the worldly pleasures. Study Torah because that gives the greatest pleasure of all. The life of David is written in this as we see that every action and every step that he took in his life was to attain this achievement of personal connection to God and to be closer to God. But in this very long psalm, it's not all positive because life has obstacles and challenges as well. And David describes the many obstacles and dangers that confront him in his lifetime. But his spirit refused to be overwhelmed by sorrow, for he embraced the fountain of joy. And what is that greatest joy? Torah. And Torah is not literally the 5 books of Moses, but Torah, Jewish learning, Jewish text, Jewish living. The Torah was the guiding light for David, for it's God's words. God's Torah was spoken about in this psalm in verses of complete praise for God's salvation that the Torah brings to us. So what do we begin with this psalm? We begin with the word that many of us know, ashrei, happy. Happy are those whose way is blameless, who follow the teaching of God. Happy are those who observe God's decrees, who turn to God wholeheartedly. They've done no wrong, but have followed God's ways. You've commanded that your precepts be kept diligently. Would that my ways were firm in keeping your laws. Then I would not be ashamed when I regard all your commandments. I will praise you with a sincere heart as I learn your just rules. I will keep your laws. Do not utterly forsake me. So all these verses start with the letter Aleph, and we're praying that who's the one who's happy? The one who's happy is that we follow God and that we're blameless. Now, tmimim is complete or perfect. So that's where the concept that I was saying orally was that it's the perfection. Tmimei derech. So the way is blameless. So the way is perfection. And how do you do that? By following God's decrees, the whole lev, with your entire heart. So not half-heartedly. You got to do it with your entire heart. They've done no wrong, but have followed God's ways. Now, you might say, if we didn't do any wrong, why do we have Yom Kippur, where the whole day we're saying, I did this, I did that, al chet shechatati lefanecha, and all these sins that I sinned before you, God. But we know that none of us are perfect. And we're to keep God's words diligently. Lishmor me'od. So me'od is very. So the lishmor me'od is that you observe very much, that you really observe it. And we have one of the words that is frequently used in this first couple of verses is derachai, derech, that the way. And you think about that halacha is from the root, which means Jewish law, is from the root hey lamed chaf, which is to go. So what does halacha do? Halacha teaches us the derech, the way to go. And we shouldn't be ashamed because of the commandments. We're here to observe God's commandments. And if you didn't remember before, how are you supposed to do it? In verse 7, levav, that you're supposed to be yosher levav, not bechol levav, not all your heart, but in the straight heart. So you really have to do it sincerely. And I'm going to keep your laws. And what do we ask of God? That God won't forsake us. Al ta'ezveni. It's the same word that we sing in the Shema Kolenu. God, hear our voices. Do not leave us in our time of need. So we follow this because we're in this relationship with God. We're in this covenant with God. And it works perfectly connected to studying it this week with the Parsha of Parshat Nitzavim Vayelech, which happened to me by Bat Mitzvah Haftorah that week, which I haven't really chanted since then. But Nitzavim Vayelech, we begin that we're all standing at Sinai, and God says to us, it's not only those standing here today, but everyone coming forward is standing here as well. So we all stood at Sinai together. we follow the Torah as we read in the first verses of this psalm because we're in this relationship, we're in this covenant. And in the Parsha, it says that we were standing at Sinai together. Why? Because God has made this covenant with all of us. The beginning of the Parsha, I'll read to you, verse 13. Velo itchem levadchem anochi koret et habrit hazot. Habrit. So it's not only you that I have made this covenant with, but it's also all those afterwards. So we really have to think about that covenant. How many of us think about that covenantal relationship with God? And that's why we're all about this. So I was realizing that I was going quickly because I wanted to get to the second part where how to create a sacred space, but we had announced that it was going to be at 12:30. So I don't want to start it too early in case anyone comes exactly at 12:30. So one of my questions that I posed at the beginning was that this psalm is teaching us that there's 7 plus 8, the 7 days of the week per se, and then the 8th is our aspirations, our spiritual aspirations for the future. So is there anyone who would want to share what one of their spiritual aspirations might be? Like, what are you thinking about? What some people word it as like, what mitzvah do you want to add to your life this year? Or how do you want to connect to the covenant or to God or to Israel, your sisters, as we enter this new year? It's getting close. And hopefully someone will join in answering that, and you can unmute yourself and just jump right in.
To continue studying.
Anything specific you want to study? I love that.
Well, I've never studied Talmud. That's a big one.
Okay. All right, so some Talmud study.
I joined up to be part of the bat mitzvah program. And even though I had a bat mitzvah when I was 13, which is a long time ago, I'm looking forward to learning with everyone here.
Good. Excellent. And it's been very successful. Audrey.
I'm looking forward to continuing study of all the different prayers that we sing and say on Shabbos particularly.
So some prayer study. Good. I'm going to write these down too. Sally.
I just want to continue to climb that ladder of Jewish knowledge and learn all that I can about my Judaism.
Good. Learning never ends. And Joe?
I've been trying to actually find somebody to study Kabbalah with me, which is not the easiest thing to do because most Kabbalah study groups are actually not Jewish Kabbalah study groups.
Yes, and not every Kabbalah teacher is created the same. This is true.
It's like, it's been really hard for me to find. And I'm like, I'm looking for, something that was made for Jewish spirituality that's actually Jewish.
So Eitan Fishbane is a professor at JTS who's written a few books on Jewish mysticism. He's a contemporary of mine. We went to Ramah, Wisconsin together. He grew up in Highland Park, Illinois. So you could read something from him, which is very different than the Kabbalah Center, like Rabbi Berg in California. That's different. But Eitan Fishbane, if you want to read something. Debbie Lempert?
I think maybe it's not a mitzvah, but I hope that in a year from now or whenever we are back together and moving forward with our lives, that I don't forget to be appreciative of being able to move forward. Right now, I keep thinking I want to be back to my old life, which will be the future life, but not take for granted what we have when we get it back.
It's a good lesson that I think we're learning. There's also giving me ideas of what else to study or learn. Anybody else? I'm going to the second page, but you can unmute yourself also.
I've had a goal for many years to learn the trope for the book of Ruth because I had my adult bat mitzvah on the first day of Shavuot, and so it would complete the package.
Nice.
So now I've said it, I have to do it.
And it's streaming on Facebook and all of that, Phil.
Yeah.
Well, after davening in your shul this weekend, I'm sure your rabbis would be.
Oh, I already have the trope on my phone, so that now I really have no excuse.
Yeah.
I have two things. One is to complete chapter 9 of the book of Esther. I chant only part of it, so I want to learn to chant the entire. Plus also on a daily basis, we say the Amida 3 times to really break it down and learn what the different prayers are, what they mean, you know, so because if you go to a minyan, you race through it in the 10 minutes service or 15 minutes, and sometimes you don't know what you're saying. So to break down the 19 prayers or whatever amount is.
That's good. And you know, sometimes in a lot of shuls, they tell you don't necessarily, unless you're leading the service yourself and you're the Shaliach Tzibor and you're the one leading, be on whatever page is meaningful to you at your own speed. So we all have our aspirations of what we want to learn for the coming year. And King David teaches us in this chapter of Psalms that why do we do all this? It brings us closer to God, to create a loving relationship with God. And Torah really encapsulates our life and empowers us. And you're all here to study together with Women's League because that's what we do. We empower our women to study Judaism together. So at this time, I'd like to ask Anne, who is our reader for this week, for our list of our loved ones who are saying Kaddish for, to read our names.
Okay. And I haven't seen any additional ones, so I'll just go from the list. In our hearts, we remember Evelyn Seelig, Sue Press, Leona Elligberg, Dolores Magan, Phyllis Haas, David Copland, Louis Hoser, Ivans Stanton, Julie Wynn, Louis Berlin, Hilda Stern, Sylvia Kraus, Hope Dellen, Cy Kane, Minna Asterson, Richard Marhit, Lillian Rappaport, Eden Rich, Susan Berman Levine, Avraham Ben Hirsch Lieb, Lillian Tobias, Alicia Ninsura, Helen Goldberg, Dr. J. Marlin, Linda Hornick, Rabbi Sigma Faye Corin, Donna Spector, Samuel Ben Chaim, Andrew Curtis, Rabbi Ken Roseman, Hannah Rich, Stephen Lazarus, Moisha Miller, Stephen Carlin, Richard Marek, Doris Kaufman Shaman, Benjamin Zimmerman, Moshe Eliezer, Thornton Soup Saferstein, Dr. Merrill Goldman, Herb Lubars, Julie Horowitz, Allison Stopel Weaver, Harold I. Abramson, Judy Berger, Madeline Saul, Rabbi Micah Kaplan, Nisan Yisrael Ben Yaakov Aryeh, Sarah Bat Avraham, Raymond Raskin, Staff Sergeant Adiel Fischler, Raymond Sassoon, Nachman Ben Leah, Devorah Bat Albert Miller, Ruth Wolf, Joan Sitver, Hannah Bat Shimon Vicarline, Helen Rose, Leah Barker, Robert Thrope, Robbie Cohn, Margot Grossbein, Florence Lotstein, Pinchas Mendel Ben Yaakov Virachel, Joan Steiner, Michael Silverman, Miriam Lehman, Larry Gamulka, Ellen Babbitt, Dr. Stephen C. Schreiber, Michael Barr, Adrian Villa, Waylon Beth Wingen, Lucille Vey, Rabbi Aidan Steinsaltz, Gary Kaplan, Theodore Fishman, Carol Hope Taub, Jordan Davis, Randall Craig Fleischer, Tim Wilson, Michael Ward, Selma Maisie, Mel Crouppen, Dr. Sheldon Shine. May their memory be for a blessing.
Thank you. And it's also the yurtzeit of Irene Schreiber. And I believe that I read it was the yurtzeit for Helen Citron today too. But I can't find the email now. Does anybody else have any yurtzeits or any recent passings that they want us to add to our list? Please unmute yourself at this time. You can add them. And as well, please unmute yourself and rise if you're going to be reciting the Mourner's Kaddish at this time. And as we all unmute ourselves and recite the Mourner's Kaddish together, I'll be pointing to the words so that we can read together at a slow pace. Yitzgadal, Yitzgadash, Shemei Rabba, V'yalman, Ra, Yirutei, V'yamlich, Malchutei, V'chayei, V'yomei, V'chayei, V'chol, Israel, Ba'agala, Uvizman, Hari, Ve'imru, Amen. Yehi, Shemei, Abba, Rav, Elam, Hey, Omaya. Yitzvarach, Yishva, Yitzar, Yitzram, Yitznaseh, Yitzar, Yitzaleh, Yitzalal, May, Kudusha, Richu, La'ela, Im Kol, Birchata, Shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Ta'amiran, Alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehi, Shlama, Rabba, Shemaya, V'chayim, Aleinu, Yalkol, V'imru, Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Roma. Ya'aseh Shalom.
Aleinu, Yalkol, Yisrael, V'imru,
Amen.
We remain standing at this time if you're able to. I'm just going to mute everybody. Toby Mazer will unmute herself, who will be sounding the shofar for us today as we are continuing with our waking up during the month of Elul as we prepare ourselves for the new year. Toby. Yasher kochech. Yasher koach to all who participated today. Thank you, Karen, for blessing us with healing and for reading the names of our loved ones. Toby for sounding the shofar. And I'll turn over to Debbie. We're a couple of minutes early. I don't know how many people are coming in exactly at 12:30, but I bet we have announcements of upcoming events taking place at Women's League.
Very good at filler, Rabbi. Very good. So first, I'd like to again wish happy birthday to Rita Wertlieb and Carol Simon. And maybe we could sing happy birthday to them if you all want to unmute yourself, and then I can give announcements. And Carol's on the phone. Maybe Carol could unmute so she could hear herself. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Who's going to start? I tell you, I'm tone deaf. Somebody.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Carolyn. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Thank you. Thank you, Mimi. I heard you take the lead. I appreciate that.
At least we didn't ask how old we were.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Happy birthday. We wish you both many, many healthy, happy, many more birthdays. And maybe next year we'll all be together in person. So
Thank you.
I want to remind you that Thursday night, September 10th, we have under our personal conversations initiative, and it's a very long subject title, which I don't have next to me, but we'd love to have you join us. It's all about helping ourselves get through this time of COVID-19, the pandemic, and sitting across the table from our relatives who aren't politically aligned with us. So we hope that you'll join us on Thursday night. The link is in Women's League Week, which went out last week, and it'll be in this week's Women's League Week, which will probably be a little bit late because of the holiday yesterday. So please join us Thursday night for that. And again, in a little while at 12:30, which is in 2 minutes, we're going to be hearing a special presentation from Toby Holtzman and Debbie Lempert, who are Women's League's International Tefillot Chairs. It's a new position created because they were the Tefillot chairs for convention, which of course, you know, didn't happen in person. It happened virtually. And Toby and Debbie had a big part of that healing service. That was the first part of convention. And it was a wonderful healing service, and we thank them for that. And so in this administration, it was decided that we would just continue to have them as our Tefillot chairs since they're doing such a great job. We thank them for everything they've done to help make the Psalms more special and more wonderful, and for giving them an opportunity to teach us today about creating a sacred space in this very unique and challenging time. So does anybody have any announcements about their region and what's going on in their region that you would like to share with us while we're on? Unmute yourself and please feel free to chime in.
Beth Tikva Women in Toronto, Ontario is having a program. We're part of INR. Sorry, I didn't say that first. Having a program the end of September. It's actually Tuesday, September 29th. And the speaker is talking about too Black to be Jewish and too Jewish to be Black. And it's at 7 p.m. And if anybody would like any more information, I can put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Adele. Adele's Sisterhood president there. So why don't you do that? Put your email in the chat. And if anyone wants that information, they will get in touch with you. Thank you, Adele. And that's International Northeast Region. Anybody else?
Temple Sinai in Dresher, Pennsylvania already had a program that that might interest people. We had a woman, well, a congregant, sisterhood member, who invited us to send in the name of the shtetl where we originated from. She did research and she did a presentation on shtetlach, and she is agreeable to doing that for any synagogue that would like. Give her a little advance notice. She'll research and do like a 45-minute presentation.
Beth, why don't you put your email in the chat so if anyone wants that, they can get in touch with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Beth. So it is 12:30, and I'm going to turn it over to Toby and Debbie. Rabbi, did you want to introduce first, or are we just going straight?
Do a brief introduction. This
There you go.
year, it's going to be totally different for the high holidays. I know some people may be in their synagogues. There are places that are choosing to allow some people in, some people not. Many of us are going to be having virtual services at home. We may be used to this already because it's the third major holiday we did that. Why was this Passover different than all other Passovers? Most of us probably never had a Zoom Seder before, and I can almost say that in the future, we might have another one, because it was kind of nice to have people at your Seder table if you Zoomed, that may have never been able to be there otherwise because of our space and how far apart many of us live. And this Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur will be very different too, that you can Zoom in and have services right in your own home, but you still have to make it a different type of space. Make it a mikdash, a holy sanctuary. So it's a wonderful thing that our Tefillah co-chairs, which now it's virtual, but will be in person at one point, will be discussing with us how we can all create a sacred space in our homes during this high holiday season. So Toby and Debbie, thank you so much. I don't know if you were going to share screen, but I made you both co-hosts. This is streaming and it's also being recorded, so we can post it on our Facebook, on our website later. It is on Facebook right now. So it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start. So Toby and I have been talking about this and working on this for a while. Toby's been pointing out all these different websites that she's found that are posting information. I actually was introduced this idea of praying at home and praying with home, which I'll explain in a minute. This summer, I took some classes with Karina Silberman, who used to do Shabbat at the 92nd Street Y. And I took classes with her on how to get beyond the screen for family high holiday services. And she talked a lot about creating, she called it a bama, like your own personal bima. I've chosen to call it sacred spaces for my family that I'm going to work with. And the idea is we are not only praying at home, but we have to deal with the challenges with home. So we work in places in our home. We go to school in places in our home. How do we get out of that space and create a space where we might have the phone ringing? We may have distractions, the computer, we're in front of it. You're tempted to check email, to look at Facebook. How do we create a situation where we won't have those distractions? And so for my own personal family, we will set that space up in our living room. We're going to connect our computer to the TV, thanks to my techie husband, and we'll be sitting on our couches. We won't have access. We'll put our cell phones away. The computer will be up on a cabinet, so we won't be able to see if there's emails. But for when I do the family service for Rosh Hashanah, my husband wants to be in that space for the service, so I took over my daughter's bedroom. So if you can see the space I've created, some things to get ready, to get ourselves ready. It's not just about the space, but ourselves. Morning meditation, as Toby talked to me about, getting up in the morning before you even get out of bed, to be thinking about this is the high holidays. It's a different time. To get ourselves mentally prepared for the holiday. Something that's going to be different for me is dressing up. This is dressing up normally, not being in my workout clothes, but actually putting on a dress, putting on shoes, and putting on makeup, all those things that maybe we don't do every morning, as if we're going to services. Putting on jewelry. I would put on my Women's League necklace. Maybe there's special jewelry. I happen to have a pair of earrings, they're not in today, that were given to me when my grandmother died. And I will wear those so I feel her with me. So I'll probably wear those with her. Have your talit on like you normally would if you do that at services, and your prayer book with you. Something that Toby talked to me about is practice being comfortable singing out loud while you're muted. And lucky for you, nobody can hear you except those people in your house. And if you aren't one who tends to sing well on key, nobody cares. No one will be hearing you. To prepare ahead of time, looking at some poems and meditations. I personally have been lucky to get the Jewels of Elul, and then I also get something on WhatsApp. And the other day I opened my WhatsApp and there was Rabbi Wollensfield talking to me. So that was getting me to think and prepare for the holiday. In regards to space, I tried to be out of my workspace. This is my daughter's room. I do use it sometimes. She's away at college. I have a I tried to find something as white as possible. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm sitting on a white quilt or off-white quilt, making it comfy, trying to think of how to bring in white for the high holidays. I'll probably set my table as if it's a holiday table. I'll put on a special tablecloth, put out candlesticks. I have my own little sacred space here. And so I've put together, I have, oh, this one came off. I bought little tea lights, just electric, because I'm going to need them for my family service. We're not asking families to have regular candles. And I have some shofars. This is a kid shofar all my families will be getting, but I have a shofar my son made and a big shofar in the back. I have pictures of my grandparents and my husband's grandparents who are no longer with us to give me that feel of being surrounded by family. I'm lucky enough, I will have family. And comfy pillows and just a space, lighting a nice scented candle, place to just relax and be ready. And sorry, Toby, if I took some of your ideas. You're welcome to redo them. Toby, you're up.
I guess we just had a little bit of a miscommunication because I thought you were doing space and I was doing more self. So
sorry about that. I thought you were going to share resources. So
okay. So I wrote out this whole thing. I'll just go through it a little bit, even though it's repetitive. But evidently, if you've ever watched The View, every day they have hot topics, and this is definitely the hot topic, because if you get any listservs from any of these Jewish organizations, every other day it's how to make it a sacred space, how to make it special, what can you do with this year that's being so different to make it holy and spiritual for yourself. And this year, our home actually has become the place where we are going to be having this very special encounter with God. And it's important that our spaces and ourselves are ready. And we should be preparing this entire month. So don't wait until a day or two before Rosh Hashanah. Probably many of us will be cooking, if not so much cooking. We're still doing some cooking. We're doing some baking. I was thinking about in the morning, instead of just jumping out of bed, sit there for a while, do a little meditation, say a prayer, listen to yourself breathing, stretch, remind yourself what day it is. I actually do this every day because we're here now 7 months, and they kind of all glom into each other. And every morning when I sit up in bed and with my cats, I say, today is Tuesday, and it kind of puts me where I am in the frame of the world. And also allow yourself to be grateful for the things that you have. I was reading on one of these grief groups that I belong to that you shouldn't focus so much on everything that you've lost, but on everything that you had and on everything that you have. And that's a good way to start your day. Begin it a little more serenely. And if you start these things now, and practice them now, you'll be in a good place in 2 weeks. And then I was thinking, if you remembered, some of you are as old as I am, how when you were a little girl, everybody got dressed up for Rosh Hashanah. At my shul, Jamaica Jewish Center in New York, all the women took out their furs. It was before climate change, so sometimes it actually was cool. And all the girls and boys got new dresses and new suits. So it's really important to, if you've been used to wearing your bunny slippers, to get dressed up. And if you're by yourself, well, why shouldn't you get dressed up by yourself? And it makes it a special day. And it lets you know that this is important and that you yourself are important. And then the other thing I was thinking about was that these high holidays this year, it's not a spectator sport. Whether you're going to be live streaming or Zooming or teaching, it is, as Debbie said, important to join in. If there's a response and it's amen, say amen. And It may seem awkward, it may seem silly to you, but really get involved with what's going on the screen. And then something actually that I read today, pick the service that you're going to go to and stick with it. Don't shop around, don't multitask. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur are not the days to be doing that. You should be focusing your attention on that one thing. As for singing, you can sing as loud as you want with your family. If you're alone, you know, as they say in Gypsy, sing out, Louise. And so I thought that we would practice now. I want to see everyone's screen. Let's share everybody's. I'll start humming. It's something that I learned from Kazan Pomerantz Burrow, and she taught this at the last in-person convention that we had. So I'll start yiddy-dying, then we'll do the verses, then we'll yiddy-die again, just to give you a little practice in singing out loud in front of your screen, okay? Yada-da-da, yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da, yada-da, yada-da-da, yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da, Lord, prepare me. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, pure and holy, tried and true, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary, sanctuary for you. Ya-da-da-da. Let's see some pictures. Da-da-da-da. Ya-da-da-da. Ya-da-da. Ya-da-da-da. 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 Ya-da-da. I hope you sang along. I couldn't see everybody. Another thing, make sure that your technology is working, because you don't want to have any glitches come that day. And then be patient, be open, be forgiving, be tolerant. This is a new experience for everyone. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. Please know that your clergy team and your lay leaders have worked really hard to make these days meaningful and special. You, their congregation. So things may go wrong. Things probably will go wrong. And that's okay. Have an open heart and be thankful for the many blessings in your life. And I have a little prayer. So, may I begin this year fresh and open to the possibility of transformation. Though the future is uncertain, I release this past year with all its difficulties and joys. I open my heart to receive the blessings of the new year. May I return to my true self and be strengthened as I continue my journey of Tikkun HaLev, repairing the heart, Tikkun HaNefesh, repairing the soul, and Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. It looks backwards. I got that prayer and many other things from, if you go to JewBelong.com, they have a Rosh Hashanah booklet with readings and prayers and suggestions and ideas, and you can download it and print it out yourself. There's also, we're going to put this up in the chat. There's also myjewishlearning.com, judaismunbound.com, ritualwell.org, and jewishlive.org. And I started doing some research, and then there are really like so many others. Just a word of caution. Make sure when you're looking for sites, you don't accidentally end up on any of the messianic sites. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between theirs and ours. until you come upon the J word, and then you'll know you're not where you should be. And do you, okay, were you going, Debbie, were you going to give that sheet that we did?
I put it in the chat.
Okay, okay.
Not all of them came up well. Rabbi Ellen, can we send this to someone and have it go in the?
Yes, I was actually just going to text you and say that. If you send it to me, we can put it in our Women's League week for this week.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to share your other idea about the screen decoration?
Oh, right. Well, I have these two, I call them the babes, my twin grandchildren, boy and girl. They just turned 4. So I thought maybe I will try this with them, though they won't be physically here with me. But for those of you who have grandchildren who will be with you or who won't, or you want to have an activity to do with them, I thought it might be really cute to get some paper and give them some paints or crayons or any other kind of artsy thing, and have them make a frame, a border for your monitor. And you could suggest shofars or apples or any kind of Jewish stars or anything. Get potatoes and do a Jewish star on them and pound them all over the place. But it's another way to get your little people involved in the holiday and have them a little bit invested, and to make your computer monitor a little bit different from the way it is every day.
I think the idea is to try to make it special, whatever that means to you, whatever that feels like to you, but to make it wholly from the normal. So hopefully you've gotten some ideas. I think that's all we have for you today.
I think that's what we have for you today.
That was fantastic. Thank you. And Debbie and Toby, do you want to open up for a few minutes of comments? I know Mimi has her hand raised. So sure. Mimi, if you want to unmute yourself and share.
Thanks. First of all, I thought this was a lovely presentation and it gave me some ideas too. But as part of the preparation for the holidays, and many of us might not be comfortable, as you said, in front of the screen and having that whole aura of the high holidays. And if you could end up by making it something that you're more comfortable with over the next couple of weeks, if you haven't done so, try to tune into or try to zoom into whatever service you might be able to find. See how synagogues or how your synagogue is handling it. Many synagogues have 1, 2, or 3 services a day. There are services on the weekends, on Shabbats. If this ends up being something that's not out of the ordinary for you, it'll be so much easier to be in your own thoughts rather than out there saying, oh my goodness, look at this, look at that. But this way you can still concentrate on being in your own thoughts because it's not such a brand new experience being in front of the screen.
Right.
My synagogue we've been calling older congregants to make sure that they have technology and they need help. And Slichot is the practice service where they're asking everybody to tune in to Slichot, and then if you have any problems after Slichot, they'll have someone help troubleshoot you. So I think it's a great idea not to wait until the day of, so that you can get technical help if you need it.
Right, right. Our synagogue this evening is having a dry run for everybody, so to iron out all the little glitches. The other thing, I don't know if we mentioned it, as far as the special high holiday tunes, practice on those too, and you can go to YouTube and just plug in anything, and of course you'll see the wonderful Chazan Ozzy Schwartz, but there are many other wonderful music makers, Chazanim, people who are singing those wonderful tunes that you know and love, and you can practice singing along with them out loud, so you also feel more comfortable when the day actually arrives.
Any other questions or comments?
Or ideas?
Yes.
Yeah, I have an idea. There are some people who are homebound who probably do have problems with their computers and things. but those people ought to be contacted first, like the beginning of next week, just to be sure that they're ready and set for the holidays and they haven't been forgotten.
That's a great idea, Audrey. I know that my synagogue, Har Shalom in Potomac, has a chesed committee, which I'm part of. I have 15 people that for 7 months I've been talking with them at least twice a month about all of these kinds of issues and their health, and do they need anything, and the holidays are coming, and do you need help with this, do you need a URL, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully other places are doing the same thing. Because yeah, not, you know, for some people who have additional challenges, it's going to be particularly a little bit more difficult to do this. Thank you for reminding us.
And Joe had a comment or question, so if you want to unmute yourself.
The other thing I've been thinking about is, like, I have a Machzor at home here that is for my synagogue in New Jersey. So I keep thinking, if I go for a different synagogue, do I have the Machzor for them? So I have found that the RA, or United Synagogue, allows you to download one of the, or two, I think 2 of the different Machzorim. But if you're looking for a synagogue that's not your synagogue, make sure that you have whatever reading materials they're using. Like my synagogue here in Florida is trying to put it on screen, which is like what he did for Shabbos. He wrote his own Siddur because everybody didn't have it, because obviously nobody planned to not be back in the building. But I mean, that's something to think about if you have the materials in front of you, because it's going to be kind of boring if you don't. Which, like, I've been trying to find a service for one of my girlfriends. She goes to Chabad and she won't go in person.
Yes, we're going to Chabad.
And they're only in person. And so we're trying to find for her a synagogue that has the Machzor that she has at home. And she has an old Machzor, and that's a problem. So
I guess say one quickly. 2 of my suggestions would be to, one, a lot of the synagogues are having a time, every synagogue's different, but some are having a time where you can actually pick up the Machzor, and maybe if you can't pick it up, maybe a friend can pick it up and drop it off for you. It's really important. I think also it's really important to try to stick to your own synagogue. Our synagogues need our support. And even if the membership this year is different than other years, our synagogues are doing so much for us that we should support our local synagogues because they're there for us. Thank you, Marlene. And that's why we support our own sisterhoods also for Women's League, but really our own sisterhoods, our own synagogues. And if she hasn't found a conservative synagogue near where she is, hopefully she'll find one. And it is difficult because some places are having in-person services, and you might not feel comfortable with that, even if it is spaced out. And I'm sorry, I may have stopped someone from talking. Did somebody else want to make a comment after that?
Toby Mazer, I think, raised her hand, it said.
Yeah, one of the things that we're going to be doing is, I'm on the committee that has put all this service together. And what I did is I took the our old book and our new book and compared the pages, and I'm making an outline of, if you're using this book, we're on this page. If we're using the other book, you're on this page. We're putting either the name of the prayer or the first 2 or 3 words of the prayer to go along with each one of those pages. And I have all of the emails from my entire congregation. Fortunately, it's extremely small, but I'm sending that in advance to people who have contacted me and said they're going to be joining us for the Yom Tovim, and that I'm sending it to them in advance so that they can kind of look through their own book if they have one, a family book, and they'll be able to write down what pages in advance so that they can pretty much follow the service.
That's wonderful. we've had that with the downloadable book online for B'nai Mitzvah, and it's not the same page numbers as the actual book we're using. So when the rabbi calls, or someone calls pages, they call in the prayer book and in the online prayer book. So it just gets a little complicated, but we're finding ways to do it.
Debbie Green had her hand up.
My cousin, who is usually on the Zoom, but today she's listening from her phone, just texted me that one suggestion that I believe her synagogue came up with was, if you can, raise your computer screen, your monitor, so it's a little higher than usual, so you're kind of looking up as if you're looking up at the bima. It's from my cousin Susie.
Thank you, Susie.
I think it's great to also, you know, I'm going to be a small group at my house, and I know Toby is also, but to maybe make some traditional foods that if I was having a large group, we would make certain things that we are not necessarily going to make this year, but I'm trying to incorporate some of those traditional foods. Toby, do you want to share with them what you're doing?
Well, my children and I have formed our little pod. So my daughter and her wife and the two little babes and my other daughter and her husband will be coming here for lunch on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And I will be making brisket, and I will be making chopped liver, and I will be making all those things. And if I find the energy, I will be making Edna Frank's delicious halot, because we really scarfed them down. But yeah, I want the house to, you know, it's so important for all those other things we've talked about, to get the olfactory senses going, and for the house to smell like holiday. I will be making my mother's mandelbrot, which are really good, even though they're made with Crisco. Ugh. But they're really delicious. So yeah, how about you, Debbie? What are you making?
Well, we're actually participating for Erev Rosh Hashanah. Our synagogue, when Passover came and we all shut down, our synagogue worked with a neighbor of mine who's a caterer and created Seder meals along with everything for the Seder plate. So they're also offering Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur meals. So we're ordering some of those to support the shul and her. The only thing that traditional that we're making that I've gotten to is my husband's mother's apple cake that makes enough to feed an entire army. So we're going to try to make a part of the apple cake so we can still have it and not be eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a week. I haven't planned the rest yet. Any other comments or things to share?
I'll be right over, Debbie.
Okay, Marlene. We might have to also make the mock chop liver in much smaller amounts. While Toby makes the real thing, our family, we have a vegetarian child and we switched to the vegetarian one.
If I may publicly sing the praises of Debbie Lempert and their culinary skills, her adult son, Zach, and her family has made a special Rosh Hashanah guacamole complete with pomegranate seeds that if you knew the tradition and you were lucky enough to be invited to her open house after services were over, when they were held at shul, you would drive in and fight your way through dozens of teenagers for a taste of the special Rosh Hashanah guacamole. Thank you, Debbie.
And we had to actually put some aside for the grown-ups that the teens didn't know about. Unfortunately, there's less and less of them as they've grown up and gone to college. So next year, Marlene, there'll be more guac for you.
And it looked like Marion wanted to say something. Did you?
Yeah.
Yes, Marion.
Well, our shul, if you paid up your membership, this Sunday will be the fourth time that people were driving up and getting the machzor, and they gave us a little gift. We got honey and tea and a very nice card and thing from the shul. And I know that most shuls will, if you ask, you can pick them up curbside so that you're right there with the service that you're accustomed to. And our ritual director always gives two different, if during the week or on Shabbat, he'll say, this Siddur, this, look, page 600, this one. So it makes it very easy. And if you need even the daily one, whatever you need, I'm sure curbside, any of the shuls will come out to your car, or if you have a neighbor, my sister picked it up for me, so that I've got everything ready for the holidays and also for Shabbat and the daily, because I want to do yahrzeit for my mother-in-law tomorrow. So no, tonight and tomorrow. So those are ideas. I mean, you have to work at it if you want to get these. You should be able to get them from your individual shuls.
So I want to say that this has been a most wonderful program. I thank you, Debbie, and I'm sorry,
Toby. That's okay.
Toby, forgive me. And I want to tell you that I'm actually looking forward to services this year. It's going to be entirely different, and it's going to be a lot of fun, as well as keeping up with the traditions. And I will be happy to put my name out anywhere that you want to send some of that wonderful food. I'll send you my addresses, and I'm looking forward to many, many wonderful times with all of you. This has been a wonderful year for me. Thank you all. And Lashana Tova.
Shana Tova to you.
And you all come back here.
I was going to say that to you. Debbie and Toby, thank you so much for everything. This was really a fantastic presentation. And the most important thing is to not be, we might be physically alone, but spiritually, we're not alone. We're together. How appropriate that our theme this year for Women's League Torah Fun is Biyachad, because we are together spiritually. And even if you're one person in the house, make sure your house smells like the holidays. Do something special. It doesn't have to be huge, but don't play it down, because you're an important person too. We all are. And this was really a wonderful presentation, Toby and Debbie. Thank you again. And for Erev Yom Kippur, even though it is on a Sunday, we're going to have Yizkor together. So if you don't feel comfortable having the Zoom on, or if you're not able to do that, if your community's only having in person, tell people that we're having Yizkor together on Erev Yom Kippur. And then also during Chol HaMoed Sukkot, we're going to have Yizkor as well on that Friday, October 9th. Toby and Debbie, did you have any parting words before we conclude?
I hope everybody has a sweet and healthy New Year.
Same. And I wish you all the same thing.
Everybody does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
All
much.
beautiful.
Happy and healthy. Thank you to
Wonderful.
all the people that teach us,
Yes.
from Rabbi Ellen to all the other teachers and the singers and the readers. Thank you. Also, I just want to say one thing. A lot of shuls are doing a lot of prep work before the holidays and making a lot of information available just to learn and to figure things out and whatever. And I think that it behooves us to take advantage of it and make it better, not just the things we lost this year, but the things we can add this year.
And I also think giving them the feedback, the positive feedback, because believe me, they're going to hear the negative feedback, but to reach out to your shul and let the leaders know how much you appreciated all their hard work, because they are putting in so many hours to prepare for this. And often they only hear the negatives, so make sure we flood them with the positives.